When we look at the various factors determining to gauge to what extent the plan which an organization has done, that has to be measured. So, in that context, we are going to look at what are the major attributes does an organization could able to take itself to measure whether the planning which is been done is effective or not. So in that case, we have listed around seven important points which usually helps the organization to take that as a yardstick to measure how well they are able to measure that effectiveness of HR planning, which they have planned it well in advance. So we all know that planning doesn't have something called as a start or to stop. So we always consider planning as a continuous process. We can't say that today we have planned things and for tomorrow we are going to go for a complete sleep. So it doesn't make any sort of sense here to gauge that planning is something once we start, after that there is no what called as stopping to it. So it has to go on and on and on. So that is the reason why we always call HR planning as a continuous process. So this continuous process always helps the organization to have that effectiveness as well as to see how well they are able to execute their plans on a regular basis. And we all know that we usually plan things by keeping in mind our future. So that is the reason why organization always tries to see future about three or four folds forward than what uh, the other competitors usually look at those things. Take for example, nowadays we are coming across something called as a 5G services offered by most of the mobile companies. But once those services is been rolled out, and currently they would be planning for 6G or 7G, keeping in mind the future. Because as an organization, we should always have that sort of forethought with respect to gauge the level of competencies what you require for both for your development as well as for your organization development. So that makes a lot of sense to understand that uh, to whenever you want to gauge an effective HR planning, it should always have something called as a futuristic approach to it. And the third point is, as a management, it is uh, a primary responsible to plan things. We always see that in an organization chart, most of the top priorities will be given to something called as the planning factors, wherein which the top level employees will always take care of this planning process, and it is their key responsibilities that once they have been handed over as a leader or a person who takes the organization forward should have this sort of futuristic approach inside their mindset to execute those plans into a reality. So we can say that it is a what you call as a key responsibility of any person who is occupying a key position to plan things so that it should have some effect in the future. And the fourth point is, usually HR planning is also considered as a part of corporate planning, or we can say that both the things usually would work in something like a tandem. So we can say that it is a combination thing. One side, if corporate planning is going, the other side, parallelly, the HR planning should also move in the same way or in the same pace as what the corporate planning does. So that is the reason why it is also called as an integral part of corporate planning. And the fifth point is, we are going to look at how well you plan things so that you could able to get the maximum out of your available resources, as what we say in terms of technical knowledge, like optimal utilization. That makes sense that even HR organization or HR department is also giving a key priorities to make sure that if there are 100 employees, they should make sure that all the employees are being utilized to their optimum level. So that is how usually you would able to uh, collectively get the productivity as what you expect from your entire workforce. And that is how usually world is nowadays running with respect to acknowledging their talents or how well they are able to execute their roles and responsibilities. So that is an integral part of optimal utilization of human resources. And sixth point is how well you are able to employ right persons for the right job. And this is one of the challenges nowadays, since we see lot of interventions in HR activities. Uh, Getting this particular attributes to be online is one of the biggest challenges, as what most of the HR managers will be telling nowadays. You can expect lot of the management interventions or your uh, your immediate leader intervention with respect to executing your roles and responsibilities. And sometimes even the leader will also influence you to have this sort of bias approach towards executing any of the responsibilities that is being shouldered upon you. So these things are bound to happen when you are working in this sort of team culture, and this thing should not be in place, or it should not or it should never able to get this sort of opportunities to be executed in the future, with respect to making sure that could able to get right persons so that they should be employed to the right type of job in order to get the optimal what you call as returns from those recruited employees. And the seventh point is human resource planning does not just forecast employees number. And this has been long set back that HR planning doesn't only focus on recruitment but also with respect to other aspects like compensation, appraisals, training and development, then welfare schemes. And there are so many other things. Strategically we look at those things as the key factors, but it has been misinterpreted by most of the individuals, saying that HR planning mainly focuses on only with respect to recruitment. And that is how usually people tend to see things with respect to differentiating how well they are able to look at things. And next thing is, let us focus our attention towards what are the major hurdles regarding HR planning. Under that, first one is uncertainties that is bound to happen. And second thing is inaccurate forecasting methods that can be with respect to generation of employee demands, or it can be related to forecasting of the market demands also. Third one is lack of support from top management. It is always been expected that whatever support you expect from the top management are always never going to be awarded to you until and unless if you are able to justify your stance. And fourth point is inadequate information systems. Adequacy or the effectiveness of information also plays a very prominent role, and also which acts as a major barrier with respect to HR planning. Fifth one is employer resistance and employers resistance. Both, if you want to implement change means you're always bound to encounter the resistance both from the employer as well as from the employer side. And we always know that planning requires a lot of time and cost has been involved, and many companies would always try to stay away from these things, because nowadays we have a formula which clearly indicates that cost effectiveness is a key mantra for any successful organization. So that might also sounds one of the major barrier towards HR planning. And the last point is lack of participation and coordination among operating managers. And we also see that when we look at different hierarchical positions, we might face these sort of undue challenges that are majorly bound to happen every now and then. And these are few of the barriers that we can come across. And apart from that, next we'll focus our attention towards what are the major challenges of an HR or for human resource. The major challenges We start off with the recruitment, then with retention, motivation, and culture. First thing is recruitment. It is being challenge. It is been lying as a major challenge for almost around 5 to 6 decades, because getting a right people is very difficult, and after getting a right people, uh, to retain him, that is another big challenge. And once you try to retain him, if he stays back, then always keeping him motivated is another big challenge. And when you compare all these three things, that is recruitment, retention, and motivation, the other important part is how do you balance the work culture that exists within your organization. That is also a biggest challenge. Sooner or the later, apart from this, we also come across so many other minute instances where we can find out other challenges which usually we don't consider as a major contributor, but these are some of the, you can call those things as a top four factors which always pose as a challenges for most of the HRs.